general interpretation of health, right? We're talking about redox in a way that people don't understand how to harness this balance between reductants and oxidants in the body. All oxidants aren't bad. Antioxidants makes it all sound bad. You need them. Friend or foe? The answer is yes to both. Out of balance, foe. In balance, needed. So just understand that, like, we didn't know this way back when. I didn't know this on Jason. But where you're going right now, we're not a risky company right now. Let me tell you why. Because my dad's a strategist, we were profitable in 9 months, and we've never not been profitable. We raised some investment capital, but we have no long-term debt. None to speak of. That facility has been entirely funded from our profits, and you'll see it today. You can eat off the floor. We have outside regulators come in and say, I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. It's very, very pristine, and we know what we're doing in that building. When you marry that with an IT infrastructure that's already in 31 countries, with a compensation structure that's able to pay every week in multiple currencies, north of 10, right? We have been working for years for you to come here today. That's the story. Now, you're either gonna see it, right? You're either gonna swim past the breakers and look out and go, there's a wave that's worth my attention. Whether you're able to kick and drop in on it is not my job, right? But if you remember that it's not about you, and you can see what I'm saying, and then get your own block of these. Share it. Quick little sidebar, I've done a lot of work in marketing and business for many years. I'm a guest faculty speaker on a ton of core topics all over the country and around the world. You don't test with marketing. You don't just decide to place one Facebook ad for one day and then decide if it worked. You lean into your marketing strategies and you must invest time in them. The people that come to me and were like, well, I gave it to my dad and it didn't help. Okay. I posted one Facebook ad and it didn't get me any business. You have to understand that this is an investment of time and it's a numbers game. And I wish it was a 10 for 10. But you know the drill, right? You know that a baseball batting average at 300 means they strike out 7 out of 10 times is gonna make hundreds of millions of dollars. You guys need to understand that what we're talking about here is you gotta get out and share this. As this grows, this starts to move really quickly. It's very kinetic. And the what if question starts to go, whoa, 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 what if? I have no problem with, and I know many of you have been in this space, we're in the space of beauty, vanity, whatever you want to call it, but I will tell you there's a different level of impact. I'm talking about a way different level of impact. When you get out into belief here and start pinging off this, which we're just starting to unveil, like we're just getting to this spot. This is real, we're actually in front of the curve on this. When you start marrying this with this, there's gonna be a lot of people trying to drop in on the wave. There's gonna be a lot of people, and we're like 10 years lapping them right now. There's nobody in network marketing that can touch us in the redox space, nobody. There's a lot of people that can play in nutritionals, they can play in a lot of places, but nobody has this, and we're psychotic about protecting it. We patent landscape this stuff. We're doing work right now. We don't talk about it a lot, but in the game of chess, if you know anything about chess, the most important spots on the board are the 4 center squares. So as you're playing chess, whoever can get one or more than one of those 4 center squares tends to manage the board. If I said to you, I want to open a business in the cola space right now, I'm going to create Ty's Cola Company, and you were my advisors, and I'd say, what do you think? And you'd be like, slow down a bit. And you might ask me, who owns the 4 center squares? And I might say Coke, Pepsi, and then if you're from where I grew up, RC Cola. If you remember RC Cola, there might be a couple others playing on the outside. But those 4 center squares are largely owned. Who owns the 4 center squares in redox?
ASEA.
It's us. It just happens to be we chose network marketing because that's not where we come from. But my dad was right again, doggone it. Because dad looked at it and said, we need something where it gets out to people. Nobody's gonna push their grocery cart down an aisle and drop this in the cart. They need to understand it by you. okay? So you can be here trying to solve a financial problem. Our number one earner had a huge commercial building, had made a ton of money in network marketing, and she was literally sinking when she found this. Everything in her life is paid off. She doesn't run around spending money she doesn't have. It's all paid off. She goes, it's not what you earn, it's what you keep. She goes, the last company I was with was telling me to take everything I earned to make sure people could see what I earned. And that put me in debt. Because I was supposed to optically look a certain way. She goes, the game now for me is it's not what I earn, it's what I keep. I tell people it's not what you earn, it's what you become. It's not what we earn from our labors that matters most, it's what we become by them. And that's the game for us here is people. It's creating a really safe, stable branch for people to shimmy out on. Because yeah, it feels like you're out on a branch, doesn't it? You're kind of like, hope this branch doesn't break. My job is to make sure the branch doesn't break. Your job is to shimmy and move yourself out on it a little bit. Take some risks, talk to people. And when you do, you're gonna have a lot of people that are gonna say, oh, I don't buy it. Well, I didn't buy it. I thought my dad was a kook, and he's very smart. I mean, it's tough to get your hands around, right? But when you start leaning into it and declare your independence emotionally and otherwise from people's response, you campaign from a place of conviction, which happens out in here, right? You can also campaign from a place of hope. I did that with Jason. If all I did was fear and doubt and never went to even talk to Craig, and I don't take a lot of credit, Craig's the guy that leaned into hope. But you can see what I mean, right? This is a You Are Here map. I could throw this marker at all of you and just sit back down and have you come up in here and say, yeah, I'm right here. And I'd say, okay, good. What do you need to do to move to the right? Well, first off, you gotta want to. If you don't want to, you wouldn't have gotten on a plane to come out here. But if you want to, then you gotta lean down here. And I would just say, just give it to people. And then you say, well, what if my sister won't drink it or my mom won't drink it? And I say, well, then leave her alone. Best thing you can do, those people, just leave them alone. Because my doctor wouldn't do it, I left him alone. He'll find out about it downstream. When the wave starts coming in and people start barreling out of that to the surfboard, they're like, that's something going on there. And you just go, yeah, he'll come back. And the best way to create curiosity is to not try to change your eye color. I'm not changing your blue eyes. I'm just saying, I got something I think can help you. But I'm gonna honor your agency. I'm gonna honor your ability to choose. Because I see you as a human being and not as an object. You are real to me, and I'm here to help you with something. When you campaign from a place of abiding conviction, and then dislocate yourself from emotional response in any way, you're not letting anybody hurt you because I'm here just genuinely interested in you, you're gonna win. You start paying attention like how I make this trip to Mexico, and you start spending a little too hard on that, or how I make this rank, and you lose that connection to the soul of what we're trying to do here. And there is a corporate soul here. It drips here. It's real. But you can't dislocate from that soul. You've got to stay connected to that because it's not about just the cash. It's not about the pictures of that lifestyle. It's more about, I got to go out and find somebody to help. And man, that is a totally different sense of motivation. It'll push you through grandma looking at you funny or your husband or spouse or somebody going, are you nuts? You're doing this again? You're a doctor, what are you doing? And you go, time out, right? My doctor's got it in his fridge. An enormous percentage of our American growth is on the backs of people coming from your background and say, yeah, this is real, we need to pay attention to this. Now, let me pivot to one last concept. If you said, what makes us really different? And unfortunately, I don't know how to market this. I know how to help people feel it, but I don't know how to market it. They just have to fundamentally go through it to know. I wish I could do it a little better than this, but here's the deal. When you realize you're not building a check, but you're building people, when you realize that this is more about what people become, we always say here, the outcome is not income. The outcome is overcome, become, then income. I know lots of good friends of mine that are very sad who have a ton of money. If you're just solving for that X variable, it's not gonna work. My dad lives in the same home, drives the same car, right? He is the same person. His outcome wasn't income. And he literally, it's so odd for Mom and I because my dad was the most stoic, non-emotional, like, guy. He just sits there on Sundays afternoon when we're in the backyard or something. He's just got tears dripping off his face. I'll say, Dad, I just got back from Hungary. Listen to this. Or this, I'll show him a picture of a little boy or something real, and he doesn't talk anymore about it. He just sits there and he literally gets to where his lip is shaking, and that's it. And he won't talk. He'll just kind of get up and walk off. That's not a game for him. And frankly, we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what this would be. We didn't know what it could be. I mean, these guys did way more than Dad and I. I do think it's a cool hallmark of our company that Chuck Funky and I have worked together for 17 years. He's been here now for 9. Karen, you've been here for?
I've been here
9. You've been here for?
So 10.
10. If you stacked our executive team, we don't leave each other. Who has the inside look on this deal? In an industry where this is a mecca, like I can hire anybody in this space. Our turnover at the senior executive ranks in this company is next to 0. That's a message. There's little hidden, unwritten messages if you look for them. You're like, because these are the folks that are on the inside. If I'm in here wringing my hands about how much money you're going to generate for this company and we're kind of giggling about the fact that you're just along for the ride for us, you're a bumper sticker on my car, you're going to feel that. And my executive team is going to be like, that's not who we are. We worry a lot about what we call the corporate soul. Ethos is nothing more than the distinguishing spirit of a culture. And corporations, as the word suggests, come from the derivative of corporeal. It's a body. So if it's a body, can it have a soul? It's a fair question. If you look up the definition of a soul in the dictionary, what will you find? It says the spiritual part, right, of an organism believed to give it life. I think corporate soul is an enormous priority. You have to reconnect back to the why. You have to be careful how you treat other people. We can't sit in a room and turn this into a P&L. If we turn this into a P&L, we will kill corporate soul. I have been to so many companies. I've worked for publicly traded companies. I've worked for companies that had a soul and lost their soul. I work in a community where I've seen companies start with a soul and lose it. And most of the time, you can watch for these hallmarks. They're almost like distant early warnings, like a buoy system on a tsunami. Way out, water level rises. There's indicators if you're losing the corporate soul. If you've worked in the healthcare space, you've sensed that. The soul of it gets lost, right? Efficiency starts to become the watchword, productivity, profitability, and all of a sudden it's like, what are we doing this for? And then private equity players start getting their hands on stuff and they're saying, I got a 5-year window, I'm gonna flip this gig, and before you know it, the whole basis of what made this really spiritually driving and giving it life starts to get lost. Does it happen? Yeah, could it happen to us? See, I'm married 25 years, a couple weeks ago. We had a wonderful weekend together, and we're going on a trip later this year. I adore my wife, but I don't think I'm without the possibility of doing something that would hurt my marriage. I wake up every day realizing that could happen to anyone. And so the commitment is not so much this notion of I would never do anything wrong. The commitment is, no, it happens to very, very good people. I don't go to those edges. I realize, no, that can happen to me. That can happen to anybody. I feel the same way about this company. The exact same way. That I watch companies around us that rise and fall, and I say, why did that happen? Did they lose their soul? Did they never have one? Did they start without a soul? Did they start with a soul? And I think those are questions we deserve to ask. I've been to funerals of grandmas and people I loved, and I remember as a little boy seeing their body and being like, grandma's not there anymore. It's kind of weird, right? And then I say, I've seen companies that look like that, where there's just no life. So how do you keep that soul? You teach it. You share it. You live it. You live it. Individually, you collectively, me personally, you check yourself. You look in the mirror. You stop accusing and stop excusing yourself. You say, how am I contributing to any problem we're having? And you start with you, right? I listen in my kids to when accusation starts to take over. And then I go, okay, Dad, he did this to me. And I go, okay, that's cool. Let's step back for just a minute. What did you do? Anything? Dad, he did this. And I say, slow down a minute. Let's slow down a minute. What did you do? And pretty soon it's like, well, I did pinch him, but, and then I'm like, Ellie. So my kids don't even come to me with it anymore. They just know, like, I have a law in my house. It's the same word. I'm a word guy. Look at this. My kids know this. They don't like it. When you accuse, you excuse. It's a law. Anytime I'm demonstrating it's your fault, I have excused myself from possibly contributing to the problem. You want to create a healthy organization? Invite people to say, how am I part of this problem? And it's the most beautiful thing to see, because the second somebody starts turning inward and says, how am I part of this? It's a custom invitation to everyone else. It works in relationships and it works in companies. We have a law, and I'll end with this. We have a law here that we call the EP ratio. It's a formula that you may have seen on one of these ethos videos, but let me just reconnect you to it. For 5 years, I've wanted a new whiteboard, and I do have some influence over that decision. I've just never done it. Okay, I have this little law that I live, and I'm going to measure on a y-axis your motivation and commitment. And I'll put motivation 4 and commitment 2. And if I used a 0 to a 9 here to measure a 9, because it's a composite score and I want to keep it 3 digits, so I say, what is this one? I pay a lot of attention to someone's motivation 4 and commitment to their ego. And I pay a lot of attention to someone's motivation 4 and commitment to economics or money. Neither of which are inherently bad or wrong. But it's really important for me to see a relationship. This part here is principles. Now, if I said to you, what does the word principles mean? Most people will quickly say, like, integrity. And I'm like, that's an example of a principle. Define principles for me. How would you do that? Let's try it. Principles.
What motivates you?
Something that motivates? I'll take
Beliefs.
that.
Beliefs.
Good. So let's start talking about this. Beliefs. What else?
Values.
Core values.
Good. I'll take values and I'll put core on it. What else? Anything else?
Your integrity. It's like how you
Okay.
how you live your life.
Okay, so when I teach this to my kids, I say, here's the game of life. You ready for it? Principles are truth. They're truth. And they're concentrated truth. They're so condensed that you can take it to the bank. You can take it to your neighborhood, to your marriage, to your workplace, to your school. Any setting you want to take a principle to and apply it, you can bank on it. So examples of those. Honesty. Does it matter in my marriage? Uh-huh. Does it matter in my business? Mm-hmm. Does it matter in my neighborhood, in my community? Uh-huh. I can take that anywhere. And it's concentrated truth. Humility. Absolutely applicable in many settings. Civility, kindness. Any number of beautiful truths. Now, you can tie those back to faith. That's cool with me. You can tie those to any number of fountains of where they might come from. But the key game here is, are you motivated and committed to truth more than you might be motivated and committed to yourself or money? So this becomes a graph. If I said, here's a 5 on a scale from 0 to 9, healthy, you'd say, well, for me, I don't know yet. I want to see this first. And if I see someone whose motivation for and commitment to principles, truths, core values, beliefs, integrity, if that's greater than their commitment to money and themselves, good. Let's put an 8 on here. Now, what happens, I'll draw a mini graph over here, if the commitment to E is an 8 and the commitment to principles is a 2. Is that real? Do you see it?
I work for it.
Yeah, okay, you can work for it. I've worked for it. I worked for a New York domiciled 170-year-old insurance company. I had a guy call me. I was running Arizona, New Mexico, 29. I had no business in that job. I was scared to death every day. And he said, you're going to get this number. And I said, I've got a plan to get the number. And he kind of stopped me and goes, you're going to get this number. And I said, like I said, I have a plan, and we're making a run at it, and I'm very confident we're going to get it. And then he said, you're going to get the number, and I really don't care how you get it. Does that happen?
All the time.
Is that an E over P moment? Now remember my law about accuse, excuse. Want to know what's really dangerous? when people start using core values as a sword instead of a mirror. People start using it as a sword, they're like, yeah, you're not living it right. But if people use this as a mirror and go, what am I motivated right now by? You're down the stretch to make the trip to Mexico or to make diamond or to do something. Those are the defining moments. And unfortunately, EP ratios, or what I call motive management, the ratio between your ego and economic drive versus your commitment to truth, if you let that get out of whack, well, unfortunately, it's like blood pressure. I can try to lift this table and have a spike in my blood pressure right like that. Height and weight takes a little longer. In my case, not too long on weight. Like I look at a donut, it's on my waist. But the punchline I'm trying to get at is this moves really fast. Our EP ratios move. So how do you keep a culture? How do you keep a spirit? You keep the P score greater than the E score. You got to be careful with that. Do I have to do it? Uh-huh. Do you? Yes. We got to slow down and say, what's driving this decision right now? If I'm looking at the comp plan, if I'm looking at any number of things inside of a system, if I'm sitting in the wall, what we call the war room, right through that wall, hundreds of times, and we'll say, yeah, what's the basis for this? What's the EP on this? Or is this, what's the principle that underscores this? My hope is that my kids will learn that you win long-term when you keep P over E. You win short-term sometimes when you throw E over P, right? But you don't win long-term. And you might say, well, where did this come from? I spent 17 years in the financial services industry. I watched the people bow for the laurel. I watched the people recognized, and some of them were in jail a year later. I'm not kidding, like real jail, real prison, who like sent statements out to their clients that their money was growing when they were taking money out. Like, and these were the dudes that were bowing for the laurel. So then I would sometimes sit in the back of the room. You know who I was with? I was with a 30-year veteran who is wearing a normal shirt and a normal tie, and who's actually not terribly like exciting on any number of levels, but he's the real deal. And you know what? He keeps E under P, and he's been there for 25 years. And so I started looking for those people. Those are the ones I wanted to get on the stage. Those are the ones I wanted to say, yeah, you got my respect. Because the top spinners, the ones whose E over P they can't even manage, they're pumping this thing up like a bicycle pump, and they're going, it's about me. I want to be recognized. I want to be seen. I want more money so that I can get over my own insecurities and just keep faking the game. I'm like, that's not it. I want those people to look at themselves and go, yeah, I got to do some checking on myself. I should stop excusing myself from this. I need to slow down. And I've had men and women come up to me and say, you know what? I've never once thought this way. I got to check myself. I love it. You know what happens? It starts to become a form of light. And light attracts light. We've had people come here who are chronic E over P players. They'll admit it. They'll be like, I'm E over P. I had one guy come to a fly-in, not unlike this, but more people early in the stages. I don't think I've ever told you this. He walked up to me, he said, you just threw up your EP ratio, and I sat in the back and indicted myself. I'm here from another company. I was sent here by their leadership to figure out what you guys are doing and saying, and you just taught me something. I'm E over P, and he walked out. It was like he just immediately checked himself, and he's like, you know what, this is wrong. This dude's talking about me. Unfortunately, I'm talking about all of us. We're all E over P. We're wired to be E over P. We got to check ourselves and be careful. We got to say, what are the principles that want to guide my life? And when the choice point moments come, those are the real defining moments when you get to choose, you got to step back and say, I got to make sure I'm putting P first. I will tell you there is no ASEA if E was the only game. Dad could have sold this technology. But they told him, they're like, you're done. The jewelry cleaner, it's in the drawer. Check's on the table. And he's like, but people need this stuff. Like, people are going to get hurt. And you know anything about an indication of a new drug, it's 88 keys on a piano, but when they indicate, it's one key. So that's the only key you can ever play with that product. And Dad's like, well, no, because we see it helping lots of stuff. Why would we limit it to one key? And they're like sliding the check over saying, well, there it is. I mean, we want to play with you guys, but you got to stop right now. And my dad's like, well, I'm not sure I want to do that. Why? Well, because the truth is, like, he's a pretty simple person, unfortunately, in some cases. Like, he's not trying to overspend his life. But he's like, no, that doesn't feel right to me. Yeah, I can make a few bucks, but there's something else here. And now, I watch him cry at Sunday dinner. Not all the time, but I'm not making it up. And Karen can prove it, you can prove it. You see my dad and tell him a story, and he starts crying when he talks about you. The last part of this little model here, and then I'll finish, guys, is capacity. And we used to just call this an EP model, and then I realized, you know what? It's not alone, it's not just your motivations. You also have to be working on your capacity. You have to grow. If this bottle here is 12 ounces, 16 ounces, whatever it is, but it only has 9 in it, the capacity is still 12. I look at people this way. I think people are normally in a scenario where their capacity is not both being encouraged, it's not being motivated, inspired, and they just kind of accept them like, I'm 6 ounces when I got 18 to give. And they don't like it. Because the natural deal is like, keep going. Next version of you. Don't talk about iPhone 4. I don't care about regrets or mistakes. I'm ready to give it up. Let's talk about iPhone 12. You. Let's go to the next version of you. That's where the joy is. That's where the music changes in the movie. That's it. Let's go to the next version of you. And if it's here to see it and that's part of that journey, wonderful. And if it's not, wonderful. But don't get tangled on the old version of the iPhone because nobody else is. And I hope nobody in this room has an iPhone 1. I did this in a large group, and some guy's like, I still got it. I'm like, you need to move on. iPhone 1, there's a better place for you. So this capacity thing needs to stay high. So I tell people, keep E under P and drive up C. Keep E under P and drive up C. That's the maxim. Keep your ego and economic commitments beneath principle. If somebody's a 7 here, dotted up to a 7, it's a little dangerous for me. But as long as they're an 8 or a 9, I'm cool. Now you'll notice I don't put 9s on the board because I don't think anybody's got it all figured out ever. There's always room to learn a new principle. There's always room to, my dad, mac and cheese, biotech, network marketing, biotech. It's like, Dad, and bless his soul. He's 80 this year. And the last chapter in his book, it's like a world changer. And I tip my hat to him. I really do. He's the founder with a capital F. I'm a founder with a lowercase f. That's the truth. He deserves the credit, not me. I've tried my best to honor my dad and my mom, but I'll tell you what, they don't make a lot of people like my dad. Complicated? Uh-huh. Oversimplified by all of you in the field? Uh-huh. But willing to lean into risk. He took risks to do this that even you don't know and you don't know. I know. And I do respect him immensely. Thank you so much for being here today and giving me a chance to share some of my insights and feelings, a little bit about the past. I'm probably a little slow at times. I need to speed it up. But I'm not playing a game with you. I never would. I don't judge you if you're here. I don't judge you if you're here just saying, I hope this is what I think it is. Okay. But until you stack this up, and by the way, that's why I bring up things like, well, you can ask somebody who's been around for a while, and you can kind of use your nose, and you can listen to this instead of this, and you just kind of settle in and be quiet for a minute. You kind of know. You can feel it. The beautiful thing is when you marry high activity right here, this is where really neat things happen. Low activity, now you're trying the dress on. Don't try the dress on. It'll fit. You don't need to don't go to the dressing room. Just put the dress on, let's go. Like, get in. Can't leave a room you're never in? Get in. I know lots of people say, well, I've been 5 years in network marketing. I say, actually, you've been 1 year 5 times. Because you've never really gone into your sophomore year. You know what I mean? If you're going to do this, go all in. And if you don't have the belief necessary for that kind of action, then back out of it and say, where does that belief come from? I mean, is it learning comp plans? Is it learning any number of, yeah, sure, that's all part of it. But in most instances, it boils down to this. And you can't place one ad on Facebook and look for your business to grow. By that, I mean, you got to share this product with a lot of people. High activity in the middle of this will push you right. low activity in the middle of this will push you left. And then people typically bail over here. And what do? They accuse, which in my room means what? They excuse themselves. And they say, well, it didn't work. You know, that's not, you know, you said it was going to be this. And I'm like, time out. Let's just talk below the line here. Where are you excusing yourself from this event? Because this isn't on trial. Like, this isn't on trial. I don't grow $150+ million business on salt water from Salt Lake City. Like, there's something going on here, folks. And just hang out. You'll see it. Most of the time that we, all of us, get stuck on this continuum somewhere, don't we? We get stuck. And it could be, I had a bad relationship. I'm scared to lean into this. Okay. What you need to do then is not only make this an experience about people, but it's about us. And I'm not playing games with people's lives. It's a sacred thing to me. And hopefully we're pretty boring. Like, I could probably use a little bit more pizzazz. Like, people are like, you're kind of a sleeper. I'm like, well, that's just because come hang out with me. Like, I got stuff in my fridge I shouldn't have there. And I got a pile of laundry, and I got kids. And I can doctor it all up and cinch a tie and put a little dimple in the tie and do all that stuff. If you hung out with me, you'd be like, this is a pretty normal human being. And the same with him. And the same with her. And the same with you. And sometimes we really get caught up on optics. When in reality, what if we were just real? What if our product was real? It's pretty cool when it starts to go real. And if you said, what's one of the core principles of this company? It's try to be real. Because in an industry like this, when they don't have substance in the product, they tend to top spin what's not real. They spin it up. Because they need you to have a shiny object moment, an SOS moment, right? The syndrome, where you look there, you see this, and you start thinking, I should be that, this should be me. And I'm just like, no, this is law of the harvest. Get on the continuum, push yourself right, make a difference, and stay in the game. The grass is greenest where you water it, not on the other side. So water the grass. I have a job to make sure the chalk lines don't change. That's my job.
Thank you for that, by the way.
No, it scares me.
I'm living it right now.
Yeah, it scares me. I think about it a lot. And I will tell you this, have we changed things here at this company? Yes. But have we always included our field? Have we always talked to the advisory council and said, we see this, what do you guys see? There is no unilateral macro change to this company that happens without some voice from our field saying that's the right thing to do. So and can that change with me? You bet it can. That's why I'm checking on this EP thing every day. I'm just like, slow down. What are the principles? See people as people. You know, because the whole founder thing in this industry is jacked. When people start to think there's something they're not, they start to inhale themselves. That's EOP. That's a problem. So let's stay low, but let's make a difference. And I promise you, if you lean into this, you're going to find yourself down here. And it's not easy, and I respect the fact that you're even considering it, because it's hard work. I have a son knocking doors selling alarm systems right now in Oklahoma City. And every night he checks in with me. And I hang up the phone, and I love that he's getting his fanny kicked every day. I love when he calls me angry, and he's like, Dad, I am struggling today, and I go, good. Same kid who served a mission for my faith in Russia for 2 years, scared to death, went straight out of high school. Very bright kid, very good athlete, very handsome kid, smart kid, but I want him to pay a price. And I don't know about you, but if you've ever eaten a tomato right out of a garden, it's not the same from a grocery store. And I had apple trees and peach trees in my backyard, and I had this lovely neighbor who just, dear friend, she still comes over to say hi to me. We moved. And Diane would come over with her pruning shears, and she would teach me. And she would come over and she would say, okay, we're going to prune here. And I said, Diane, stop. I said, this doesn't make any sense to me. You're taking away the things that are supposed to give me a peach, and I'm 2 years without any peaches. And I'm impatient. She goes, trust me, we got to do this. So she just cut all the branches down. And then next year, maybe one. But then there was this one summer, I remember coming home from work. I was almost embarrassed about it. And there's fruit rotting on the ground. It was just like the tree was coming. And yet it took a few years. but it was almost more, we were sharing it with neighbors, we were gathering it, and I was almost like, I felt wrong letting it sit on the ground. I was like, we gotta get this out to people. That's this. It's an orchard. It's an orchard. It's not a nasty convenience store with a microwave. And some people want that burrito, and you know, I'm like, this is an orchard. It takes some time, but it's worth growing. And we're trying to do it just like you. We're trying to keep it real for you and make this a safe place for you to come here. We want you to miss, we want you to fail, but we want you to know you're safe here. And we check ourselves on that all the time, and you have a right to check me on that. Like, my cell number, check. Maybe your cell number. I love it when somebody says, hey, this doesn't feel right to me. Now remember, I look for these two things. My kids stop coming in with the stuff that's thin, because they know I'm gonna nail them. But if you bring me something that says, hey, this doesn't feel right to me, then we're gonna talk about it. I got a guy from Mexico right now that's got several things in my inbox, and he says, you need to look at this. I'm like, you got it. So thank you for being here. Thanks for, most of you, in my understanding, are in the game with us. Let's roll. I mean, let's go make some things happen for people and for you guys. My goal is chalk lines don't move. And you're welcome to talk to us about that at any time. If anything, I think we're sometimes too slow because we're really sensitive about it. We just don't want to shake this up. Karen, thanks. Pepper, thanks. Super Barbie. Superbarbie.com is a really good concept. Maybe .edu, because you're going to teach and grow your business. But thanks, guys, for letting me do things.
Thank you.
Any questions real quick? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Tyler, you're talking about, it doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to tell people it's this percent or this percent, but what percent is it?
That's a good question. I can't answer the question. I wish I could. Do we know and have a list of challenges people had? You guys all know this is tricky, right? It's a tight wire. I don't, if you've noticed, even talking about Jason today, I don't say the challenge. I just don't say it. I just say it has a serious challenge. You guys can fill in the blanks. Talking about William, my doctor's son, I don't say the challenge. We're very careful about that because this thing could go away. That's something where I didn't do with the chalk lines. Our field gets overly aggressive about saying things they shouldn't say. They're going to move it. So we're worried about that. I can't tell you the exact number, but I love that my dad, when I called about Jason, just said, it'll help. You start thinking about it and you go, is it going to, one of my dear friends is super, written like 30 books. He's one of the great family psychologists, taught at 2 universities here. We're having breakfast next week, and he has this really simple, he wrote a book on bringing up moral children. The concept was, does it hurt or does it help? If you can get that simple with kids. And so Dad's simple concept was, does this hurt or does this help? And now, is it going to meet you exactly where your unique challenge is? I will tell you, Jason did die. But you know what he died from?
Complications of what they gave him before.
It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. I should probably tell you the second half of that story. I own a fly fishing property in Wyoming, and we host events there. And it's kind of it's a destinational place for people. And prior to starting ASEA, I had a consulting practice as well. And so we would host events there. 3 years after we started ASEA, we hosted a snowmobiling event. This is up in the mountains of Wyoming. It's beautiful. And all these business owners were there. And probably 30 business owners came up as our guests. Several I didn't know. And I had a bottle of ASEA, and this guy says, this is a great product. And I was like, how does he know about ASEA? Because this is 2011. It was like, not a lot of people knew about ASEA. And we went on snowmobiling, and I took a pouch out of my snowmobile, and I took a drink of ASEA up on the mountainside. And he was like, from me to, remind me first name? Karen, and he said, Karen, that's a great product. And finally I was like, So I got off my snow machine and walked through like hip deep snow, and I said, how do you know about this? And he says, somebody gave that to my son-in-law, and it really made a difference, and you can kind of see where this is going. And I was like, well, so where does he live? And he starts naming Highland, and then I go, oh, well, I live in Highland. And we get down the road on Q&A, and then he goes, are you Tyler? And I go, are you Jason's father-in-law? And he goes, yeah, I am. because that's how I know about this product. And then the son is sitting there. This guy's a pretty wealthy cat. And the son goes, my dad spent $1 million trying to help my brother-in-law. Couldn't you have come a little bit earlier? And they had me over to their house the next night for dinner. We came home, and I got home and went over to his house, sat in the front room with he and his wife, and Jason wasn't there, but we sat and visited him. Really successful business guy. Jason lived for, I think, 8 years, but when it was all said and done, it had nothing to do with the original challenge. It had everything to do with all the things they had stacked up trying to address that challenge, and whole parts of his body they had taken out in the process, and he finally expired. But I could literally pull my cell phone right over there, and I can pull up his name, and I can read you a string of text where he would say things like, I'm not supposed to be in this situation, they can't figure this out. And then he would say this or that. So I don't really know the percentage. Like, that's probably more of a scientific approach to it. But I love the simplicity of saying, it's gonna help. And somebody's like, well, will it fix this? I had an Irish guy in Dublin about beat me up. He was drunk, and most Irish guys, he had red hair, the red beard, and he had been drinking, and he came up to me, he's like, this didn't fix this, and 2 of my employees just walked away. You were there that night. Kurt just kind of went like this, and I'm sitting here with this guy, but we don't run around telling people it's going to fix everything. I just know it's going to help. And if you say, well, it's going to help. And that's the simplicity of what my dad said to me way back when with Jason. He was about my dad, and he goes, Todd, it's going to help. He didn't say, is this going to, I said, would this help him? And he said, yeah, it'll help. So I think of it that way. I don't think of it in terms of like, it's a block. I just say, look, this will help you. Think of all the things people are so incredibly willing to lean into that don't always help. In many cases, in Jason's case, they hurt. But they're trying to trade off on 2 evils, right? It's just like, and I look at this and go, no. I don't say this a lot, and I wouldn't want you to say this. We've never had a lawsuit. Now, somebody knock on something for me. But I just want you to hear that. Like, we've never had, and think of the millions. We run the math, like 13 million bottles and like some crazy number of 4-ounce takes, if you assume it was all consumed. And you go, but we've never, now it could happen. Somebody could claim something, and it can happen any day, but I do think that's an important reference. I've had scientists, very well-known scientists, say, well, one thing I can tell you for sure, it's safe. So that's like your lowest level. And then you go from safe to help or hurt, that moral code of, is this gonna help you or hurt you? Well, I can tell you this is not gonna hurt. It's gonna help. Now, whether you wanna buy into it or not, I don't give a rip, because it's not on a trial. I don't give a rip. What I'm here to tell you is this can help you, and you ought to consider it. And then you'll start to create your own hash mark list, and you'll kind of get a sense, but be careful, don't go so far as to tell people something. I don't think that's fair, to build a false hope. I think, and I hope you sense that I walk a tightrope even with you. I'm telling you real stories. I'm not embellishing them. There's no hyperbole. They're real. But they're kind of sacred, and I try not to go too far with them. We see stuff online that's scary. People are saying things they shouldn't say. And we have to watch that. You guys need to be careful. But just start with, I know this can help you. I'm confident it can help you. How that might manifest itself, I don't know, and I know it can help.
So,
Go ahead, sorry.
go ahead, Supervisor. So, Marcy and I were talking about sustainability. What are you doing from a company standpoint, from a product innovation standpoint, that this company is going to be around for our kids in 20, 30, 40 years?
That's a really, really good strategic question. So the answer to that is a couple of things. Number one, you have to landscape a patent portfolio. That's what they call it in the industry, is landscaping. So you know that the patent life on anything is typically 20 years. So, the idea would be, can you come up with variations on your process patent or something that you can kind of, they call it laddering or landscaping, where you ladder new patents around an old patent, such that as you learn, whether it's, you have trade secrets that don't make it into a patent, you have things that, we know things, it's a pretty complex process. It's very sensitive to temperature. It's very sensitive to a whole number of dynamics. You'll kind of see the plant, and it's hard to piece it all together, but we have a very, very tight production set of operating procedures that we have to stay inside of to ensure the quality of what we do. I'm gonna be honest, I'm very surprised somebody's not in the game. I'm very, very surprised somebody is not in the game. We see really small things. We've seen some stuff recently in Europe that we can tell there are people looking at us, but I would have guessed, and I used to say this, Karen and Justin would say this, like, we're gonna get to the 4 center squares, but there's gonna be other pieces on the board. I'm blown away at how few pieces are on that board. I would have guessed 9 years in. So first thing is taking care of your IP and then trying to actually expand that. They call it a family of patents, where you build a family around a core patent that makes it difficult for someone else to check on. I'm also gonna be super honest and transparent and tell you that redox is a tricky space. It's not easy for example, to innovate a product as innovative as our blue bottle product, as the ASEA redox sub. Not easy to do. Coupling it with nutritional products in the marketplace that have high integrity, but that may look and feel like others, is a way to kind of bolster your product diversification. But we're really excited about the potential of redox. We're starting to engage in a little bit different look at it, and that's the game, if you want my opinion. The game is redox. And so working in that space moving forward is a priority. It's not a terribly visible one for you, because I'm guessing you guys would know that you have to test a lot of things to get to something as unique as that is. There was $15 million of work just to get to that. And the indications they were working on weren't, as a supplement that you drink. They were taking a different route. So I would say that the legacy side for me of sustainability, the biggest risks are what you guys say in the field or others say in the field. How our comp plan gets administered and how we handle that in the face of regulatory bodies is relevant. Our product, in terms of protecting the IP, speaks to sustainability. Our corporate soul matters. You can lose that soul pretty quickly. And so when you marry all those things together, and then future product roadmap for us, it's prioritized around redox, but I'm not gonna lie, it's not like we just snap our fingers and the next amazing redox product comes out. It takes money and time and research, and we're into that game, but we don't run around and wave that flag until we know we have something.
Tyler, can you talk a little bit about just the checks and balances that you and Justin and Jerem and Chuck have just within that core, just to keep yourselves accountable, to keep this in balance, asking each other the hard questions, just so that we don't end up with a situation like Arbonne or other companies that implode or sell out or walk away from the people. You've done an excellent job communicating that people matter, but can you dial it down a little bit further? Can you really hit that for us here?
Well, most of that, if you were to get really close to it, is a function of control dynamics. So where control is typically kind of signals something. The fact that we're in control of the enterprise from what they call a cap table standpoint means that we can't have a single shareholder come in and dictate something. So any kind of unilateral change of control typically is something you want to watch for. Right now our position is pretty clear on that, and we're pretty careful about that. We do have investors. There was a significant amount of capital raised to get us to where we are today, so we have a responsibility to some of those folks. And some of those people really took risks, like way more than most people, and they're quiet, like you don't know who they are. We have people in their 70s, that invested in this, so we have a responsibility to those folks as well. They're a stakeholder in this game. You look at an ecosystem of stakeholders and you say, we need to be working hard to satisfy our field leadership. They're a stakeholder in this game, they're partners. We have shareholders we have to think about. And so it is a bit of a tightrope for us to make sure that we're doing the right thing by those folks as well. But I guess the way I would say this is, it's more about personal character and the way that character comes together across people. If the control dynamics were tied to the wrong type of character, then you can get into trouble. Like you can have a scenario where someone's character starts to kind of lead the wrong way. We recently have done some work, and I love this guy. In fact, I should tell you about this. There's an app you can get for your phone called Superpowers by a group out of San Francisco called SY Partners. And Superpowers invites you to go through a series of binary questions. It's about a 15-minute exercise, a couple dollars for the app, but it kicks out your superpower. It just says your teaming superpower is this, and it's probably the coolest thing I've ever seen in teaming. And it's fun to get Chuck, Jared, myself, Justin. What's your superpower again?
Pattern map.
Yeah, he's me. Yeah, that's right. We're both pattern mappers. So like something like this, where you can see cause and effect differently, and you start building. So I'm a UR here mapper. Like I live building maps. Those war rooms through this wall are all whiteboards, the whole wall. I don't know why I have it here. He's a pattern mapper. Like he'll see. That's why he's a great comp plan guy, because he can see. He's like, oh yeah, this is cause to that effect. Chuck's a cultural compass. And has a very clear sense of binary right and wrong. I mean, literally, if we're hosting a lunch here, Chuck's the last one to eat. I mean, it's that kind of stuff. It's like deep. It's deep character stuff. So I think to your question, like, how do you check it? Well, like, I could drop my kids off at Chuck and Annalita's house for a week. That's how I check it. And they could drop Lauren to my house and just go on vacation. You know what I mean? It's like such a deep level of confidence and trust. Same with him, right? Karen wouldn't want my kids, but you know she loves my daughter. You would love my daughter, but they love Karen. Like they know. I think about it more at a personal level of where does that character live. And one of the reasons I love that SY Partners Group, I got to tell you this, it's the neatest concept, and it's important for you guys to think about. Is the guy that founded SY is called Keith Yamashita, and he's a really interesting guy to listen to. But he said this beautiful thing. He said, if you're going to start something, start from a pure place with equal parts empathy and aspiration. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to rewound it. He's like, if you're going to start something, then start from a pure place with equal parts empathy and aspiration. And I'm like, that's how this started. That's E under P. Start from a pure place while you're doing it, and marry it with aspiration. You gotta lean into it, you gotta work, you gotta go, but you also gotta have empathy. And so to me, ASEA is a pure place. It started as a pure place, and we have aspirations. Like we will grow. I'm not asking anybody's opinion. I don't read editorials. Like I'm going. And I don't really care if somebody gets on the train or off. I know where this train's going, we're going. I'd love to have you on. Don't get on the tracks in front. Like just don't cross the tracks. Get on with us. Tip your hat to us. Doesn't matter to me, but I know where we're going, and we have to take care of the things that keep us on the tracks. Okay, so it's mostly the people. I'm telepathic with Charlie and Jeremy and you. Like you know me, she knows me. We were talking last night at 9:30. It was a late dinner for me, but we know each other, and you can't head fake people very long. You know what I mean? You don't go 9 and 10 years traveling the world with each other without knowing each other. And that matters. That's a big deal, because you can kind of lean into trust. And we're not playing games with people. You got to feel it. You're still going to take risks because you're not in complete control. You thought you were. That's why you're here. But we need to make sure the chalk lines stay really fair for you. Does that answer it? Any other questions?
Everybody's gonna want pictures with you, so if you will just give me just 10 minutes so that I can get individual pictures and then a group picture, if you don't mind. Does anybody else have any questions for Tyler?
Well, no, I mean, my question, what you were speaking to it a little bit, I was just curious, because I've been told that I have I'm a visionary. I see long-term.
You should do your superpowers before you leave here and tell me.
Okay.
My dad's his vision.
Okay, because that's what at my church, that's what they lean on me for. But my question was, I mean, I love insight to be able to have better vision, so I'm not afraid to ask.
Go.
I've been in sales all my life.
Me too. Go.
So my question is, like, I was wondering if you'd lean in a little closer to us. I heard there's a new product coming. Is that true or false?
That's true.
Okay, so I just didn't know, since we're at this table and nobody's recording this part, right? You're not recording this part. If you would just like give us like, just a hint, just a little glimmer.
You're a visionary, don't you?
I have a feeling that I don't
I have a
have.
feeling it's a
Well, we
suppository.
love it.
Suppositories.
There you go.
Well,
Yeah, we have to be a little careful, just because we're, another principles, we want to make sure the field has a fair,
yes.
Oh, and I'm not,
Everybody has
I mean,
opportunities.
I want to settle in. I don't want you to spill the beans.
it's really good.
Oh, it's really good.
Okay,
You've
how soon?
never, you've
How
never been
soon?
disappointed
How soon
before.
though? Is it close to convention?
Convention.
Okay, so who all's going to convention?
When is convention?
Don't know, we're going.
It's September.
It's
September.
September, everybody should have their tickets, and listen, if you get your ticket now, you only pay $179 as opposed to $299. And then it's gonna go up again, because you all have been, you just got involved. What are you shaking your head for?
I thought it was in your first 90 days.
There's nobody here that's been in longer than 90 days, you have? Have you guys been 3 months?
I've been 3 months.
3 months.
Is that right?
Okay, 3 weeks. There you go, 2 weeks. I guess because you didn't start until May 2nd, so May, June, I'm thinking 2 months. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well,
Any other questions?
Increasing capacity, how do you do that?
You want to start over?
Danny
Skill.
I love it. Yeah, I think so. That's one of my favorite concepts. I think this is kind of like core character, and then this is like just sweat. It's like this is the house of pain. Like this is not doesn't happen easy. When you say I feel like my motivations and commitments are pretty steady here. Like I'm not any different than anyone else. I can have a spike in E. My wife will joke with me if I'm driving down the street and I gotta get around somebody. She's like, "Oh, a little E over P going right here." You know, like, you gotta and we'll laugh. And she's like, just relax. You don't have to be in front of everybody. We joke about this, but this is more of like you kind of want to settle into this is the character I'm trying to hold, so that money and ego don't dominate me. Because we live in a world where that's the game, and it's like it's just fleeting. It's not real. So I try to check in on this, but over here, this is like, you could stratify this, right? You could just sit there and say, this is my dad reading vocabulary cards coming home from work for 10 years. This is my dad buying Harvard Classics. Does anyone know what the Harvard Classics are? It's a 5-foot bookshelf published in the early 1900s by Harvard that was basically the ultimate comprehensive liberal arts education. And my dad buying it and then actually going through all 50 books and just saying, I want to learn, I want to grow. And it's him saying, don't run around accusing the world to not give you an opportunity. Go build yourself, go work on yourself. When I say you're valued in life to the degree you make yourself valuable, I'm not suggesting each soul doesn't have inherent value. I'm just saying we live in a world where if you're willing to work, you can increase your opportunity. So if you said, how do I build this over here? We have several training videos out there with this, but I'll give you one little secret. There's a really cool acronym on skill development called AESA. And it stands for inform or instruct. Okay? Someone needs to spend some time informing or instructing. Then D stands for demonstrate. E stands for observe, O. And C stands for critique. And then O stands for observing. So I have this fundamental problem, like when I go to a restaurant and they're clearing off a table and the lady grabs like a nasty rag or something and goes over and just wipes in a circle and then throws the menus down, and I'm like, oh, that's not gonna work for me. And so I told my kids, if you can just learn how to clear off a countertop, you got options, like that's your first start. So we have this thing where I've taped off that I have 6 kids. This is years ago when they were still in my house. I've got several out. But I got my probably 16-year-old all the way down to my 5-year-old. And they're like this, and this is the island in my kitchen, and I'm taping it off into 6 sections. And my wife's over on the computer in the kitchen, and she's like just shaking her head like, I know where this is going. I grab honey and salt and pepper and mustard, and I'm squirting it on the countertop. And my kids are just laughing. They're like, it's gleeful. They're just like, oh my gosh, Dad, what are you doing? Then I say, let me talk to you about cleaning off a countertop. This is how it's done. So I'm informing you, I'm instructing you. And I want you to watch me now. I'm a little bit OCD when it comes to stuff like this, so you don't have to do it my way, but this is my way. So I'm gonna start with a paper towel, because I'm gonna toss all the stuff I can get. I don't want it on my rack, so I say, let's start with this. And I show them all that. I go, I'm gonna get as much of this as I can, because guess where this is going? My little 5-year-old's going, like, it's going in the garbage. Like, that's right, it's going in the garbage. So I take that and I put it in the garbage. And I say, now, if it's still really bad, I might double down with a wet paper towel just to get as much as I can, because I don't want it on my rack. So they're watching, they're laughing, right? And I do that, and I say, now, what does a bulldozer do? Like, what does it really do? And I lay this thing down, and I'm like, now, show me all your fingers. Get them on the rag. You can feel through the rag. And sometimes there's honey on there. You can even get down and look, and my wife's just over there like, I can't believe this is on here. And they're watching me do this, and I'm slow boating. I'm like, now this rag needs to be clean. When you check a rag that's clean, you smell it. Because sometimes there's a rag in the kitchen. Sorry if I'm making you sick. I'm teaching them this, right? But I'm also demonstrating it for them. And then I'm putting the rag down, and I'm starting this deal, and I'm bulldozing. And my 5-year-old's so excited because he can see stuff. And I go, what happens if I keep going? You're going to push it on the floor. That's right. We just create more work. Turn it back. So we go through this demonstration. Well, why did I take the table off? Because the third step's observe. So Allison knows what's coming. She's like, oh, no, no, no. And then I go down on the counter, and I'm putting salt and pepper and honey. And they're like, Dad, why are you doing that? I'm like, now it's your turn. 6 sections, right? Jacob, you're first, oldest boy, right? So he's acting too cool and the whole thing. No, time out. That's not what I showed you. Do it the way I showed you, right? You okay?
Yeah, just have something.
Oh, okay, thanks. Okay, thanks. So I'm going like this, I'm going back and forth, and I'm watching him do it, and the boys are ripping on him, and my little girl's laughing. I go, hold on, there's 6 sections here. Just a matter of time. We do it, and I say, how'd he do? He missed this, Dad. He didn't do this right. You know, and I said, tell him what he did right first. What'd you do right? Of course, he's too cool, so he's over there. But before you know it, right, we get through all 6, and what did I do? Critique, and then, oh no. Yep. Sunday dinner, we had some neighbors over for dinner. We're sitting at the table. We have an awesome dinner, and we're having a chat. And I said, hey, kids, do me a favor. Would you guys straighten up while Mom and I finish this conversation? They're up. This guy's sitting next to me. And he looks over and he's like, are you kidding me? And he's watching these kids. And what do they got? They got a small skill. It's no different, guys. You need to learn from people who can help you to see how to do it. They need to demonstrate it. You need to then try it. And you know what? When my son was struggling on his basketball team and he wouldn't shoot, he was just so scared, I finally said, I want you to miss. I give you permission to miss. I go to him, I said, I want you to miss. This game you have to miss. Because we get so worried about missing. Who cares if somebody says no to you? Who really cares? Don't give anybody the power to own you. Just completely dislocate yourself emotionally from anyone's response. And speak from your soul and move. Speak and move. Move. High activity is the game. I'm not going to sit around and try to change your eye color. I'm going to tell you what I have to say, and you're going to either act or not, and I'm moving. You do this, inform, demonstrate, have somebody watch you. Ask for feedback. It's no different than anything else. Get a little feedback on how to do it. Do it again. And you say, well, what should I start with? The very basic stuff. Guys, did I go to my doctor and try to become a chemist? The answer is no. I just said it works. What's the moral code? Does it help or hurt? It helps. This is going to help. And somebody puts me on trial, I just move. Don't let people treat you like a commodity. Don't. You're not on trial, and neither is this. If they don't get it, they will. I'm not worried about it. People come up to me all the time, my sister won't take it. Leave your sister alone. Move to somebody else. Okay, so skills from my perspective, I wouldn't get tangled. You know, you come from a world of skill development. I mean, you didn't do what you do, but don't get wrapped around the axle, right? Just share it. Let your own source credibility from your background play out. And then if you don't feel like you've got a skill set, find somebody around the table who does, because there's people that can help. That's what I would do. Anyway, guys,
Let's get pictures.
Photos
Yes, really fast, guys. Let's go by the ASEA sign, just one at a time.
Okay, it seems like we're gonna make it